Every mask has a story. This one is real. The names have been changed. Everything else happened exactly as you're about to hear it. I want you to think about the person you trust most in this world. Your partner, your parent, your best friend. Now I want you to consider something uncomfortable. How well do you actually know them? Not who they tell you they are, who they actually are, when you're not watching. Because Douglas trusted his wife completely for 52 years. And she trusted him. And the whole time, he was someone else entirely. Tampa, Florida, early 2000s. Douglas was by every measure a success story. Millionaire. Owner of one of Tampa's most prominent highway construction companies. A man who had built something real from nothing. His wife Jean was equally loved. A philanthropist, a socialite. The kind of woman who walked into a room and made everyone feel like they'd been waiting for her. They lived in a 4,000 square foot brick home on the most prestigious golf course in the city. They had 3 children together. They had been married for 52 years. 52 years. And Douglas was gone most weekdays. Business, he said. Highway contracts across the state. The kind of work that demands sacrifice. Jean never questioned it. Why would she? He always came home. What she didn't know was which home he was coming back to. "20 miles from Jean's front door, there was another house. Another woman. We'll call her Helen. Helen had met Douglas years earlier when she worked as a secretary at one of his companies. To Helen, Douglas was a completely different man. Different name, different story. A man who told her he was single. A man who was completely free. They fell in love. They built a home together. They had 2 children. Helen had no idea Jean existed. Jean had no idea Helen existed. And Douglas moved between their 2 worlds so smoothly, so completely, that for nearly 30 years, neither woman ever felt like anything was missing. Think about that for a moment. 30 years, 3 children with Jean, 2 with Helen, 2 lavish homes, 2 complete lives, 20 miles apart. And every single weekday morning, Douglas put on a face and became someone else. For 30 years, it worked perfectly. Until a quiet evening in March, when Jean came home from a party, drove into her garage, and never came out. Jean had been at a small social gathering with a friend that night. Her friend walked her to her car, watched her drive away, thought nothing of it. Jean pulled into her garage, closed the door behind her, and at some point, before she could turn off the engine, she lost consciousness. Carbon monoxide. By the time her daughter found her, it was too late. Douglas was out of town when his wife of 52 years died alone in their garage. He was, as always, out of town. The community was devastated. Douglas wept at the funeral. His housekeeper later told reporters, he was really depressed. They cared about each other. They had been married for so many years. And everyone believed him, because he was that good. 2 weeks after Jean's funeral, Douglas married Helen.
The same man who had just buried his wife of 52 years stood at an altar and said the words again, "I do." Jean's 3 children found out, and the 30-year mask finally came off.
Here is the question that nobody can stop asking when they hear this story. How? How does a person love two women completely for 30 years without a single mistake, without a single slip? Psychologists who study men like Douglas have a name for what he did: pathological compartmentalization. And here's what makes it so disturbing. It's not the same as lying. When you lie, you know the truth, and you replace it. There's guilt, there's effort, there's the weight of keeping the story straight. What Douglas did was something different. He built walls inside his own mind, so complete, so structurally solid, that each life felt entirely real while he was living it. With Jean, he was Jean's husband, completely and genuinely. With Helen, he was Helen's partner, completely and genuinely. The other life simply did not exist, while he was inside this one. Pause. And this is the part that should make you pause before you trust anyone completely. These people are almost impossible to detect, not because they're good at performing, but because they're not performing at all. The love was real. The grief at the funeral was real. All of it, both lives, were completely real to him, just not exclusively yours. Pause. The mask for Douglas was never a mask. It was his face. Both of them. Jean's 3 children asked police to investigate their mother's death. Was it really an accident? They wanted to know, or something more? Tampa police reinvestigated. Their conclusion: no evidence of foul play. Jean had simply come home, parked the car, and lost consciousness before turning off the engine. An accident. Pause. But her children will carry that question for the rest of their lives. Can you blame them? Pause. And then there were the other children. Jean's 3. Helen's 2. 5 people who grew up as only children, suddenly discovering they had siblings. Siblings their father had kept from them. Siblings who had lived 20 miles away their entire lives. Some of them have since met. Most of them have not. Douglas was never charged with a crime. He lived out his remaining years with Helen, the woman he had hidden for 3 decades. He never publicly explained himself. He probably never felt he needed to, because in his mind, he had loved both women with everything he had. He had simply had 2 of everything. Pause. That is perhaps the most disturbing thing about this story. Not what he did, but that he never understood why it was wrong. Jean's family still lives with questions that will never be answered. Helen's children still live with the knowledge that half of everything they believed about their lives was built on something their father chose for them. And somewhere right now, someone is maintaining a version of this, wearing a face that isn't theirs, moving between worlds they built on silence, convinced the walls will hold forever. They never do. The mask always slips. It's just a matter of time. I'm behind the mask. If this story stayed with you, you know where to find the next one.